Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Carrie Severson. She is a best-selling author, burnout expert. She has navigated both entrepreneurship and caregiving through her husband's cancer journey, and we'll be learning practical strategies for recognizing and recovering from burnout while maintaining self-worth and balance in demanding roles. Welcome to the show, Carrie.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Carrie. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about how one can defeat caregiver burnout, which is quite high at the moment. So we'll talk about all this. But before that, let's understand a bit about your journey, your background, so that the listeners know who they are listening to.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I've been a professional writer for 30 years, but my burnout journey started in entrepreneurship about a decade ago. I created a nonprofit organization leading an after-school program for middle school girls here in the United States, and that caught on like wildfire. And it was in demand at the time. And I couldn't keep up with it. I couldn't sustain it. I had a really good foundation for growth and sustainability, but it was so needed. I just burned out. I was unexpected. And when I went back to my roots of storytelling as a way to heal, I started writing about my burnout journey about a decade ago before other people were really talking about it. So I say a lot of times that I burned out before burnout became a buzzword. And I used my storytelling ability to communicate with others that this is what it feels like. This is how I'm getting over it. Perhaps, these tips and tools can help you too. And that's really how my first couple of books came out. My first book is a memoir about my experience. And then the Enoughness Method is really a guided journal that other people can use to support themselves through their own burnout recovery journey. But I burned out several times, once as an entrepreneur, once during COVID, as I'm sure the rest of the world can really relate to. And then a third time just recently as a caregiver for my husband as he was battling cancer. And here in the States, there are 50 million family caregivers. And a lot of us have 9-to-5 jobs and then come home and have to care for an individual living in our home. And so we have 5 to 9 and we have 9-to-5 and 5 to 9 jobs, right? And that's really what I'm interested in talking about is caregiving burnout and how we can put principles in place with our lives to support those individuals because they can't stop caring for their loved ones, right?
Right, right. Caregivers need care and love too. So, Carrie, I want to understand about burnout thing. And if you are hearing this firecrackers by any means, then do understand that we are in this festival season, and it's a festival. Yeah, Diwali season is very much there. This is the first day of that. Tomorrow we'll have the smaller Diwali, and day after tomorrow we'll be have the real festival. You will be So these crackers, my mic is not 100% working, so a little bit of sound you will certainly hear with all these things. But these are all great, great times, great festival indeed, and we are all in that festival mode. So talking about this burnout thing, Carrie, in your case, how did you know that you are in burnout? And it was not one instance, but several instances. Was it the same every time? Was it a different way?
Yeah, it presented itself differently. In entrepreneurship, it was very much this rat race I couldn't get out of. It felt like I had so much to do. It was unattainable. Nothing I did was going to alleviate the pressure I felt. I had a hard time taking deep breaths. I put on a lot of weight. I had a hard time sleeping. All of those symptoms are signs of burnout. And I didn't know that until one morning I woke up. I talk about this experience a lot. One morning I woke up, and the first thing I felt or saw flash across my face was this term, burnout. I I never heard of it before, and I had been on a retreat of sorts to support myself and get back into my body and really understand how to heal myself. I'd been in a self reflection phase for about a month and had not looked at my phone, had not looked at my computer, put all my responsibilities onto my colleagues and my board of directors. And I basically said, if I can't get a handle on my life, I can't continue to serve the way that I've been serving. So one morning I woke up, I saw this thing flash across my face, burnout, grabbed my phone, turned it on for the first time in a month. And before I looked at any icons on my phone, I typed in the term burnout into a search engine, hit enter. And the definition at the time, and this is back in like 2012, was emotional, psychological distress caused from prolonged exposure to professional stress. And I was like, oh my gosh, this like immediate wave of emotion hit me. I immediately started crying. And I was like, this is exactly how I feel. This is it. So I went down a rabbit hole a decade ago and learned everything I could about burnout, which wasn't a lot because nobody was really talking about it. But I would try something, and like sitting outside, watching the clouds, listening to the birds, and I could feel the stress kind of melt away from my body, and I could feel myself being able to take a deeper breath into my belly. And I would write that down. Sitting outside, listening to the birds actually helps me. So I pieced together my own little recovery journey. And burnout for COVID, I mean, hit me like a ton of bricks, right? Like I went from being an entrepreneur to a stay-at-home mom, supporting kids with online learning. And my husband and I were supposed to get married, so I was replanning my wedding. And I mean, that showed up as grief. It showed up as waking. It showed up as dread. It showed up as apathy. It was very heavy. And then finally, as caregiving burnout, burnout as a caregiver is a very different emotion than entrepreneurship burnout because there's this life or death state there in front of me. If I stopped driving him to radiation or chemotherapy, if I stopped helping him eat, he would have most likely died. So the intensity of burnout as a caregiver was so strong. It was so deep. But that came on like a freight train as well. And insomnia, anxiety, weight gain, dread, worry, that was all there.
Right, right. What would you tell to some of those people who may term is at a bit more hyped? How would you like to respond to that? Some people may have this misconception or their own understanding that it's a bit hyped up, this burnout thing.
Burnout? Yeah. So there is a difference between being burnt out and being stressed. Stress, everyone has stress. We live in a stressful world. Everyone has daily stresses. Uh, burnout is what happens when you have prolonged, unmanaged stress. So I say this a lot. You can take a long weekend from your job. You can take a vacation from your job. You can feel relaxed. But the second you plug back into an environment where you have unmanaged day-to-day stressors, your nervous system is going to respond pretty instantly, and that fight or flight is going to kick back in. So burnout is a nervous system issue, and without retraining our nervous system, we unmanaged prolonged exposure to stress will eventually lead to burnout. So it's not that it's hyped in the sense of everyone has stressors in their life. Whether or not you're able to manage your stress is really the opportunity. If you can, great, you will never experience the feeling of burnout or the psychological and emotional distress of it. But if you are living in a world, you're living in your reality is you show up at a job where your manager is uncommunicative, you're not communicating with you in the best manner, your colleagues create a lot of drama, you have really demanding clients, and you go day in and day out and you're not making any progress. That feeling over time will eventually lead to burnout.
Right. And a lot of people, have their different resilience
Mm-hmm.
level in terms of taking on the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Several times, we do not have an option, so we continue working.
Mm-hmm.
Several times we do have the option. Uh, how should people look at that in terms of when they have an option and they are not exercising? What I want to talk here about the caregivers. Do
Yeah.
they have an option at all to say no to something? Because there is this caregiving thing, and
Right.
also then there will be situations where you need that money. How do you want to help us understand
Manage
this?
that. Yeah. Well, caregivers, the number one tip I have for them is my caregiving experience was very unexpected. I think a lot of caregivers can probably relate to that. But the lesson I really learned was looking at my husband's disease uh, from the perspective of being his like a manager. I managed his schedule. I made his schedule work for me. Whereas if he had a really early appointment that I knew we weren't going to get to because of the traffic and I wasn't able to get him out of the house, I called and rescheduled so it fit my timeline. As long as he showed up for radiation and chemo when he need, on a daily basis, his needs were going to be met, but I had to retool his needs to fit my life. That was a really big lesson. Once I kind of got behind that and I shifted, the calendar of sorts, my life became a little bit easier. And of course, caregiving, the responsibilities are going to be there day in and day out. So I like to look at it like this. Resetting your nervous system, helping your body resonate with the fact that you're not always being chased by a tiger. Your fight or flight doesn't always have to be in response, can happen 60 seconds at a time. And as caregivers, it's really important for us to take care of ourselves before the day gets kind of away from us. So I like to provide a couple of tips, really easy. Cold therapy helps if you don't have access to a cold tub. Cold showers work. Ice rollers on your vagus nerve help remind your nervous system that you're actually safe. You're not in ancient times being chased by tigers. Okay, we can take a deep breath. Some really easy breathing techniques work too. Box breath, where you're exhaling for 4 counts, holding for 4 counts, inhaling for 4 counts, and holding for 4 counts. That reminds our nervous system that we're safe, doing that a couple times. And that can happen sitting while you're waiting for your tea or you're watching the coffee pot or something. It can happen as simply as, 90 seconds on sitting somewhere. So these little tiny spots of time, 60 seconds at a time, right, can help retrain our nervous system that we're safe, we're at peace, we can be in a state of relaxation while we're moving about our day to avoid burnout, to come back out of burnout, and continue to do the responsibilities that we have as caregivers, as business individuals, bringing home the money and taking care of our loved ones.
Absolutely. So caregivers also need all the support,
Yeah.
also need all the love, also need all the care. But where do caregivers go? Where can they seek support? Is it the government? Is it the neighborhood? Is it the society? Is there a way to
there? It's actually a huge crisis right now. We need more support, particularly from the government. Absolutely. There should be more financial support for caregivers, and hopefully there will be. Unfortunately, a lot of family caregivers do have to rely on our community support team and our family and friends. But, I was lucky where friends of mine created meal trains for us where people would show up on our doorsteps with something for us for me particularly, because my husband, his cancer limited his ability to eat. That was really supportive. People would send our church, our spiritual community helped us pay our bills. A lot of times caregivers do have to rely on their community support. There are governmental supplements for us, but not nearly enough, unfortunately. And again, hopefully that changes soon.
Right, right. And so that brings me to your book, your memoir, unapologetically, legitimately, uh,
Enough.
yeah,
Unapologetically enough.
unapologetically enough.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah. So tell us about this memoir. What is this? Who is this for? Memoir is for yourself, but then you are writing it. So who is this
yeah.
for? And what have you written in this?
So, unapologetically enough is my story of understanding myself as an entrepreneur and wanting to create something that I could stand proudly behind and create an impact in the world about. And my emotional journey of doing the thing I felt I was supposed to do in the world and burning out as a result of it. So there's this conflict I had internally of I I made this great impact. I'm changing lives. I'm showing up and I'm serving, and I felt resentful about it because I was lost in it. And so, unapologetically enough, is my journey really of doing the thing that I set out to do, accomplishing it, reaching that goal, and then figuring out who I was after that. It's definitely for women in the world, probably in their 30s, who are trying to make an impact, trying to find who they are and what they want to do, and reclaiming, themselves in that process.
Right, right. So when did this memoir come out?
2022. And
Twenty
the result of it has been really cool. Women call it a mental health book, which I was not expecting. And a lot of corporations, particularly here in the States, have asked me to come and speak to their employees about burnout recovery, about boosting morale in the workplace, about strong communication tools, about creating boundaries in your personal life. And because of that response, I wrote the follow-up book, which is called The Enoughness Method, and that's my journal. Um, yeah, it's really fun. I mean, it's definitely timely. It's very supportive if you're feeling burnt out in conflict. Um, Highly recommend it.
Of course. And when things were getting to be better from on this front, 2023, your husband was diagnosed with cancer.
Cancer.
How
Out of
did it all come in? How did you manage everything again with the way situation was?
Yeah. My life changed overnight. He woke up actually a year ago yesterday with a lump protruding out of his neck. And he comes in front of me and he's like, honey, does my neck look fat to you? And he turns his neck and there's this like golf ball hanging right here, like right underneath his earlobe. A month later, he was diagnosed with cancer. 2 months later, he started this grueling treatment. And a month after that, he nearly died. So, needless to say, between November 1st and April, I went from being an entrepreneur leading burnout recovery seminars and keynotes in front of hundreds of people at a time to managing to and from the hospital, fighting with doctors, kicking medical staff off his healthcare team, fighting with insurance, making sure that my husband stayed alive. And I didn't. I mean, there was very little self-care involved, which is why I burned out so badly. And now that we're on the opposite side of that, he's 6 months post-treatment. There is no remission. He has no cancer cells in his body. I'm now just at the point where I'm unpacking all the trauma that created and using all the tools I know to find myself in this new place. Because once you go through something like that, there's really no turning back and going back to who you were. It's now that I'm this new version of myself, what do I want to do next and where do I want to go?
Of course. And so there is this new book, I
Mhm.
Saved You. And so it's coming out in 2025. I want to understand you. how do you seek during those difficult times? People want to help. Some people genuinely want to help, but at these times, we don't know how to take help or how to even ask for help.
Yeah.
I read about all those 10 things that you listed in terms of these are the things that you can take help on. So, how would you like to tell people who are in difficult situations, who have some community around them, but do not know how to take help, what to take help in? What would
Yeah.
you like to tell them?
So when someone says, "How can I help you?" I recommend writing when you're in your clear head. There's no stress around you. Just sit down and write down 10 things that you could easily say, like, "Can you buy me groceries today? Can you fill up the car with gas? Can you pick up the kids? Can you clean the house? Can you do the dishes? Can you do the laundry? Can you mop the floors? Can you pick up, take my dog to the vet, whatever." And just come up with 10 things that you normally have to manage in your day-to-day life at home that you just can't get to. And then the next time somebody, and put them on your fridge. I had a list of 10 things. I stuck it on the fridge. And when somebody would ask me that, it was usually in the state of being, I was heightened, I was stressed, I couldn't think, I could barely breathe. The room was spinning, and someone said, "How can I help?" I would go find my list and I would be like, I'd point to a number and I'd be like, "Buy me groceries, please." Or, "Can you come fill up my car with gas?" It was very easy. And we were dealing with this at the end of a year and beginning of another year. And my husband really wanted the house to look, he wanted spring, he wanted colors, he wanted revival and renewal and rebirth. And I was in a season of like grief and depression, and I did not have the energy to decorate the house. And so at the end of his treatment, one of the requests that I had was, "Can you come take down our holiday decorations and put up spring, please?" And so my mom did that once. She actually came over and decorated our house. Just simple
Right.
things like that. It helps, makes it
So
easier for you.
you have mentioned about the lists
Hmm.
in your new book. I saved you do the dishes, love your caregiver.
Caregiver.
So
Yeah.
tell us a bit more about your book. What is this book all about? When is it coming? 2025, I understand.
Hmm.
And what have you done? Who is this again? This book.
Book four. Uh, this next one is definitely for caregivers. I think um, the really big conflict between a caregiver and a loved one, particularly in the house, is the day-to-day responsibilities that has to happen in the home, right? Because caregivers take over everything from being a chauffeur to managing your schedule. In my case, I had to hand feed my husband, had to manage his care team, and then take care of myself. And the last thing I wanted to do was the dishes, was the laundry. And when I was speaking to other caregivers, a lot of the response was, there's conflict, there's resentment, there's particularly with spouses, on that shift of responsibilities and taking on so much. The pendulum swings so far to one side that eventually we have to get back to the middle, right? So I saved you now, do the dishes, love your caregiver is that story of supporting him through his cancer journey, being a caregiver, going through that trauma, and then us coming back together strongly as husband and wife, but me learning who I am now in this new space. So it's definitely for caregivers who can relate to that journey.
Right. Apart from the book, you also have the burnout recovery affirmation cards. Tell
Card.
us a bit about that so that people can use
Yeah.
it.
One of the things that I really wanted while I was sitting in the hospital, because sometimes our days in the hospital were like 10 hours, and you have so much stress and there's so many things happening. Sometimes I just wanted a visual that I could stare at, meditate on, that brought me peace, that lifted me up, and a simple affirmation to remind myself of maybe a breathing technique or some sort of thing I could focus on that day. Really basic, very simple. I couldn't find it. And so I created it. Burnout recovery affirmation cards are really for people in burnout who uh, can't take on one more thing, but they can pick a card, look at an image that helps them find peace again, helps their nervous system relax. A lot of the images are of nature. And then one simple affirmation, one simple tool written on the back that you can implement throughout your day. A lot of it is like breathing techniques, strong affirmations that you can say at red lights or walking down a hallway, very simple techniques.
Right, right. There's much to understand and learn about all these things from you, Carrie,
Okay.
and I'm sure a lot of people would want to learn and understand about, about caregivers, their life, how they can help in giving them some care. So, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
Sure. Well, if you are on social media, my Instagram is author Carrie Severson. Um, if you want to connect with me personally, head over to carrieseverson.com and send me a note there. There's a contact page you can fill out.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you very much.